Team USA from your perspective? Obviously, a really solid effort, impressive effort given the circumstances that sort of thrown upon them in the lead up. And I guess Tomac was the key talking point. He loved the track. He was saying, he loved that there was passing opportunities everywhere, and he just really enjoyed it. It was a really impressive ride. He got the starts. He was on the scoop. He definitely stepped up, and that huge quad he was ripping was really fun to see as well. And some of those landings weren't easy for those guys, landing in ruts and very treacherous. So those guys really had to commit to that. So, but yeah, he looked like he sort of refreshed and he was having fun and enjoying himself. And it does mean a lot, that race, he was saying, and you could see that the effort put in by the USA team as a collective was just showing that. So just give us a few words on Eli, because it was a really cool ride, wasn't it?
Yeah, you can usually tell where Eli is pretty quickly. He just looked aggressive right from the get-go, and that's the Eli you want. He's not able to hide his true kind of like the way he's feeling on the motorcycle very well. If he's not feeling it, he's just not going to look that great. Like, he's not revving it. He doesn't have any aggression. He just, and this is going back 10 plus years of watching this guy race and really closely watching how this guy is, his mannerisms, his technique, and those things. And he just has a very specific way of riding when he's feeling it. And it's high revving, all gas, like body positioning is really in the attack mode. And when he's not, he's just kind of not that way. Like, he looks more hesitant. He almost is like a little bit more back on the motorcycle. There's just all these little subtleties that you can kind of see with him. So when I saw him attacking the racetrack on Saturday in practice, and then the race, I knew the track was pretty beat up, but he looked okay. Like, he looked fairly himself. I'm like, that's not a bad sign. Good start. He looks like he's competitive here. And then I saw him Sunday and he gets that hole shot. And like I mentioned on the broadcast a couple times, I was trying to share that it's like how important it was for him to look the way he did and to be in the position he was in the early laps, because that is everything for Eli. If he gets up front and he doesn't look uncomfortable in that moment, the rest is going to take care of itself, because he's charging, he feels comfortable. And I mean, it's freaking Eli Tomac, right? So you almost know what you're going to get at that point. It's the poor start, and he looks unable to really move past riders that he is far superior than. That's when there's a big problem. He's not comfortable. And he'll be the first one to tell you when he's not comfortable, he just doesn't have it. Like, he's just not going to be the same guy that, you're used to seeing, or that the legend is made of. But this was not that weekend, and Team USA really, he was the backbone of the team, right? And I don't like patting myself on the back because there's no upside to it. But if you go back and you listen to shows, and I talked about this a bunch, of the reason I thought Eli Tomac should be strongly considered for the team is because he is the rider that is capable of having days like that. If things go his way and he's 100% and he's feeling it, he can win the MXGP class overall. And I didn't think we really had other riders that could do that, right? AP's solid. AP wants to be there. We all know that. Chase Sexton, he's capable also, but he was already a shoe-in, right? The conversation wasn't between Eli and Chase. It was who was going to be the third spot. And I kept pushing the Tomac things. I'm like, hey, I've been to this race a lot. I've seen AP race this race several times now, and I think AP is a fine pick, no problem. I think he can be somewhere between 5 and 10 in both motos, which he was, but he's not going to go win the moto. He's not going to go beat Geiser, Prado, Jet, who, like, he doesn't have that top end in him, in my opinion. And that's not a slight against AP. I'm trying to be as objective and realistic as possible in my analysis. But I know and knew that Tomac has that ceiling, right? He has the top end ability to go do that. And at that race, you cannot simply go in with, hey, this team's all right. This should do. You can't do that at this race. You're going to get smoked at that race with that type of team. And I knew that. I've seen it too many times. I've traveled all over the world and watched that scenario play out, where everybody's kind of going, hey, you almost talk yourself into the team in a way. You kind of like, it'll work out. Like, those guys are pretty good. Like, they're going to figure it out. And I'm like, that's not how this race goes. That's not how this goes. Unless you have your best guys, you're not going to be in contention. And that's it's not damnation. It's just reality at this race. And listen, I'm wrong all the time. Happens. If you make enough proclamations, enough predictions, you're going to be wrong plenty. This one, I just felt like it played out the way I thought it could. Tomac was back to his best self, and he absolutely brought it. And if anybody was the reason that he was on the podium, it was Eli Tomac. No questions asked. Eli Tomac was the reason that Team USA got second.
Yeah, absolutely well said. It was a strong take, and it was a really good take as well, mate, because you're inside racing and covering the sport for so many years, and you're definitely vindicated in that, and it all worked out in the end. But yeah, that Tomac, the upside was just so high, and he has that sort of beast mode in the locker, doesn't he, mate? And you were talking about that before the team was even anywhere near announced, and just when he came back. So yeah, really cool to see him out there. And I guess to touch on AP, he loved battling it out there, loved battling with those heavy hitters, and he held his own this time around. He did quite well in France. Just that second moto especially would have left a bit of a bad taste in the mouth, but yeah, he looked happy in the UK, much faster. He liked the track, and credit to him because it was a good bounce back after the Motocross of Nations last year, and I guess he'll be primed again to do it for Ironman as well, where there'll be a full sort of list of USA riders chomping at the bit, won't there?
Yeah, I think so. As far as AP, he did what he was supposed to do, right? If anybody was thinking that AP was going to go in and win the overall or win even the MX Open against Jet, I would ask, where have you been? Because that simply hasn't happened, right? Like, he hasn't been able to beat Jet. So why would he go to this race where the stage is the biggest and that's when Jet's his best? When the lights are the brightest and the ask is the highest, that's when Jet is always his best. And I was told that years ago, and it's been true ever since. So I just pretend that that's gospel. So I didn't think that AP was going to go out and win. And then you factor in he's got to go up against the MX2 guys, which I was like iffy, like DeWolf and Koonin proved that they were faster than AP. I was sure in the MX3 and MXGP race that he would be somewhere battling to stay inside the top 10 just because that MXGP lineup was absolutely brutal. So I knew kind of where his range was. It would be in the first MX2, MX3 moto, somewhere between 3 and 8. And then the MXGP, MX3 moto, I thought somewhere between 5 and 12. And in the end, he was somewhere in that range, right? It wasn't like I didn't have a crystal ball, but you just look at, okay, who's he probably not going to be able to beat? Who should he be able to beat? If everything's neutral, this is where he's going to land. And he did the thing, right? That's the whole, that is what he has been trying to reconcile. Is he had a horrible performance when all the pressure was on in 2018. Like, they all kind of didn't get it done when everybody was expecting them to win at Redbud. Then you go to 2023 in France, and he has one good moto, and then the second moto, there wasn't really anything to lose. Like, the team was in no position to succeed, but he felt like he let everybody down. He let himself down. So that wasn't really it either. This year, I think he put in the type of performance he can be proud of. Now, did he go win the race? No, but I don't think he looked at it and said, I'm going to go win the race. I think he wanted to have solid scores where Team USA was going to use both of his scores. And in the end, if you get on the podium and your team uses both of your scores, what more can you possibly ask for than that? Like, I think there is a lot to be said for simply that fact right there, as if you're landing on the podium and you are an integral part of that, which by definition would mean both of your scores got used. Hey man, that's plenty. I think job done, mission accomplished. And you should be smiling through the offseason knowing that you really have taken steps to correct deficiencies in your game that led to these struggles at Motocross of Nations.
Absolutely. Well said. He executed his role perfectly, as he would have wanted to, and as he probably, against that field where he should have stacked up against. So it was a really nice finish to a really quality year from him. It was very consistent, lots of good results. His starts were really coming together nicely. So, fair play to him, and he would be really satisfied him to the off season with that. And I guess Cooper Webb, mate, obviously you guys were saying it was quite obvious how he's very tight on the Saturday, and he sort of got better as the weekend went on. But yeah, he was even saying he was scared in sections of that track. So a lot to deal with for him, a lot of pressure as well, but he sort of seemed to block that out reasonably well. And I think it was quite heavy for him on Saturday. I'd imagine you'd know best, mate. But yeah, he actually really enjoys those nations' environments and atmospheres. And there's nothing quite like a European nations, is there, mate? And I think he had 4 rides heading in on the 250. So, not an ideal prep by any stretch, but, battling those 250 guys like Koonin and DeWolf, and they leave it all on the line. They don't sort of build into it. They're just sort of pinning it from the outset, aren't they? So I guess your takeaways from Cooper Webb's weekend, mate, much respect to him.
Yeah, I think Webb, he had a really tough ask here. He rode exactly one moto of Pro Motocross in preparation for Motocross Nations. He had precisely 2 weeks of preparation on the 250, and he went out there and got a top 10 in one moto. Now, qualifier wasn't exactly what he wanted. I think he was 7th or 8th, something like that. It was okay, great start. First moto was not it at all, and he knew it. That was their throwaway score, and I think they got second for a reason. Like, I think they were the second best team on the day. But I think when it was all said and done, Team USA needed him to produce some sort of solid score in that second moto, because if he does the same thing he does in Moto 1, they don't get second, they get third or worse. So I think he really came through, and it's not going to be a day that goes down in infamy like the legendary Cooper Webb performance. That's not going to be what it was. But when no one was willing to step up, the team almost didn't go. We didn't have a solid. We were on our third MX2 rider for the team. He hasn't raced a 250 in 7 years. He hasn't raced Pro Motocross all summer. He was nowhere near 100% prepared for this, and yet he stepped up and got a ninth, or what did he get in that second moto? Ninth, I think, in the final moto. I nothing but kudos and nothing but credit and respect to put on Cooper Webb's name. And when you look at riders that you want on the team, right, regardless of their performance, Cooper Webb's name has to be right at the top. There may be better choices over time. There may be people riding better, but never will you find someone who wants to be there more and is more committed and all into the race than Cooper Webb is. And that to me, that means a lot.